to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining me. Man, do I feel good? Am optimism may be washing over me. And I say that in all seriousness. I'm a cynic by nature, but holy cow, after yesterday, I'm starting to feel optimistic. Men are making a comeback, and you can actually see it in the National Football League. That's amazing. We'll talk. It's Mondays. We're going to do Fearless Football Monday. We got all kinds of topics we're going to get into. TJ Moe in studio with Butter and myself. Steve Kim just around the corner. He's in waiting. He's on the runway, waiting to take off. Let me tell you the very first thing you can do on this very, very optimistic Monday. The first thing you can do is join the Fearless Mission by becoming a subscriber to the Fearless Mission. You need to go to fearlessmission.com, visit our website, use Fearless40, the promo code Fearless40. You can get $40 off your subscription to the Fearless Mission. It'll give you access to everything that the Blaze is doing, everything that I'm doing, our great election coverage, all of that stuff. But you need to become a subscriber. The best thing you can do for this show and for me and for maybe even for America is become a subscriber to the Fearless Mission. Fearlessmission.com. Become a subscriber. The promo code is Fearless40. Man, do we have a lot to talk about today. The Jets and the Cowboys. Who's worse? Who's more trash? The Jets or the Cowboys? Which fans are you sympathetic towards? Are the Washington Commanders, are they for real? I mean, for real. Are they for real? They're 6-2. Hail Mary pass gave them the game yesterday. Wow. Anthony Richardson, he tapped out yesterday. Trayvon Diggs confronted a reporter about loafing on a play, making a business decision. Some dude named Tyreek Stevenson participated in costing that Bears game with the Commanders. We'll talk about what's the worst look. Alex Smith says Patrick Mahomes is playing better than ever right now, and he's got more interceptions, I think, than touchdown passes. But Alex Smith, the former Chiefs quarterback, says Mahomes has never played better. Jameis Winston had an interesting post-game comments. He connected Jesus Christ and Eminem. We'll talk about that. The Baltimore Ravens, the team that me and Steve Kim have crowned, they looked like trash yesterday. Should we be concerned? Joe Klatt, my friend Joe Klatt, one of the guys I respect the most in this business, calling me and other Deion Sanders haters out now that the Buffaloes are 6-2. The Indiana Hoosiers, my Indiana Hoosiers, 12. Could they go 12-0? They're now 8-0, have an interesting finishing schedule. And then I'll save the best for last. The Indiana Fever fired Christy Sides, and I don't know how I feel about it. I will by the end of the show. And then, of course, Shemeka Michelle will join us. But without further ado, let me get into what has me so optimistic. We are so back, men. Men of courage, men of conviction, men with balls. We're back. And Nick Bosa, the defensive end for the San Francisco 49ers, I'm stressing the San Francisco 49ers. They beat up the Cowboys last night, and Nick Bosa comes on the postgame set and flashes his MAGA hat. Holy cow. Holy cow, we're so back. All right, let's play Nick Bosa flashing his MAGA cap.
Points in the first half. What was said during halftime? Hey. All right. Nick Bosa with a message there.
And so I wish he had been wearing a red MAGA hat. That would have been even better. But, of course, after the game, reporters, oh, my God, you're wearing a MAGA hat. Nick, tell us why. Let's hear Nick Bosa's post-game comment about why he's wearing a MAGA hat.
Would appear to be a political statement.
I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I think it's an important time.
That's all he had to say about it. And you know, that's all that needed to be said. The hat says it all. And he's exactly right. We're in an important time, and it's a time where men need to come out of the closet and stand 10 toes down on what they believe and what they stand for. And that's what I think we're seeing in the sports world. There was a kid, the kicker for Texas Tech. They run some kind of fake field goal. He scores a touchdown. He pulls up his shirt and flashes his Trump T-shirt, his homemade Trump T-shirt. We're back, man. Men are dropping. I'm sorry, some of you get upset when I talk locker room talk, but men are dropping their balls. They're letting them hang. And we've needed this. My entire message all last year was about, hey, man, quit apologizing. Quit apologizing for being a man. Quit apologizing for your beliefs. And I had a special message for white guys. Quit apologizing for being white. Stand on what you believe and quit running into the closet. Nick Bosa has been on the front lines of this for quite some time. He got in trouble when he first came into the NFL for making the point he didn't like Beyonce. And the next thing you know, Twitter's calling him racist. And anyway, let's play an old clip of Nick Bosa talking about Beyonce and Donald Trump.
You are not a fan of Beyonce. Why?
I don't like the fact that she has to make everything such a big political statement.
So you are not in Bay Nation, but you are a fan of Donald Trump,
Yes,
right?
big fan. He brings a charisma to the table that no other candidates I've seen in my lifetime. So I think we need change.
So that's Nick Bosa, the kid, standing 10 toes down. And now here he is, a full-grown man. He's made enough money in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers can't get rid of him. And now he's back out of the closet as a Trump supporter. I think this is a very, very big deal between Nick Bosa, between Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker, out campaigning for Josh Hawley, expressing his Catholic faith. Men are coming back and standing on what they believe. We've seen it from a lot of black men standing on Donald Trump and acknowledging that they're voting for Donald Trump and they're supporting Donald Trump. Men are back, baby. And I've waited for this. I've been suspicious, like, is it ever gonna happen? Or are we all gonna, not we, because it's not me, but are all the rest of you gonna just live in the closet somewhere? Have you been forced into a closet? Are you part of the alphabet mafia? And finally, guys are standing up, and I think we're at clearly an inflection point in American culture. And it is an important time, and it's not just a one-off thing on November 5th. We got to keep this same energy flowing November 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and on and on and on and on and on. And don't ever forget the reason why we've been dealing with all this clown stuff, the reason why our borders have been wide open, the reason why Venezuelan gangs are taking over apartment complexes in major cities, the reason why there's so much crime is because men were cowards and afraid to say what they really believe. And you got bullied into a corner. Oh, they called me racist. Oh, they called me an Uncle Tom, a sellout. We've let these feminists and women just run wild, and we've let the racial idolaters run wild. And so I just, man, Nick Bosa, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The kicker, I don't even know the kicker's name at Texas Tech. Thank you so much, Harrison Butker. And at the end of the day, and Steve, I want to bring you into this, and Butter and TJ into this as well. But Steve, at the end of the day, we have Elon Musk to thank for Nick Bosa's courage and this growing courage of guys joining me and you standing out here loud and proud. Agree or disagree?
I agree, but Jason, you're now optimistic. Don't ruin this. Don't jinx this. Like the general Bobby Montgomery Knight once wrote, the power of negative thinking. Do not change course. We have to be vigilant. We cannot get complacent. So no, get your positivity out of here. We have no room for it for at least a couple more weeks. Jason, I saw something very interesting this weekend. I was at the Miami Hurricanes game against Florida State at Hard Rock Stadium. And right now there's a bit of a divide in the Miami Hurricanes fan base because there's now paraphernalia with the iconic Miami U logo and Trump. People are actually using that on hats and on shirts. And if you go online, like, it is causing fights. There seems to be a fan division. And all of a sudden, certain people don't believe in the First Amendment. Here's what I found interesting. During the tailgate, during the game, and then especially walking out after Miami improved 8-0. I tell you what was interesting to me was not only the number of those hats and T-shirts that I saw, the people wearing them, they were not all crackers of the day, to paraphrase Antonio Brown. Now, look, I expected certain people to wear, I said, yeah, figures. There were a couple of people that were darker shaded, and I'm walking, I'm like, more than once. So it wasn't just the number of people wearing this stuff, it was who was wearing that stuff that was really eye-opening to me.
Look, Miami has a huge Cuban population. And so that is an atmosphere where, as a black person or a darker skinned person, you know, you can be conservative because, Cubans actually know what communism looks like, know how awful it is, and they are as hardcore conservative and Trump supporters as we have. And so I'm not all that surprised that in Miami, there's Trump supporters out of the closet of all shades.
Yeah. Jason, 2 years ago, I went to Miami's opening game. It was the inaugural contest featuring Mario Cristobal as the coach. It was Labor Day weekend, and my buddy James on a Sunday took me to Little Havana. Now, I've been to Miami many times, South Florida. I'd never actually been to the heart of Little Havana. And we went to go eat lunch there, and we walked around. I had never seen this side of the 305. There are monuments about the Cuban Revolution, what happened in that country. There are murals about the freedom fighters. And I understood right then why these feelings are deep-seated. So when the mainstream media, which comprise of a lot of white liberals who have probably never stepped anywhere near those boulevards and avenues, they would never truly understand why the feelings are so anti-communist and why they feel so patriotic towards this great country.
I just want to make sure you said a real man would have worn a red MAGA hat. Did I get that exactly right?
Wow, look at that.
Dude, that's in San Francisco. It don't take no courage to wear a MAGA hat in Nashville, bro.
I had to drive from St. Louis through Illinois to get here. Right now, Miami-Dade County, as of Friday with early voting, 69,000 Republican votes cast compared to 43,000 Democrats. Republicans are way ahead, and it's because of the Cuban population. I think, look, I wear this hat. I told you this while I ordered this hat the day that Donald Trump was shot. I've tried to wear it virtually every day since. It is incredible how many people come by, and I get it. I live in Missouri, but I live in a county that voted 2-1 for Joe Biden. And so the county that I live in would not agree with me.
You live in a liberal, well, so I guess me living downtown Nashville. Go ahead, continue.
It's terrible. I'm getting out of there as fast as I can, but it is a terrible place to live. The amount of people that come by and say, I love your hat, every single day, and it's 2-1 women to men. Way more women come by and tell me they love this hat than men. It's unbelievable.
I think that's a humble brag. I think TJ just unleashed there.
Married with 2 kids.
Yeah, it's not TJ modest.
Women have come around. Women have come around. It would have never happened. I had the Trump 2020 flag, and no woman ever come by and said, hey, I love your flag.
You know what happened to your neighborhood? That transgender dude threatening to kill people over the gym membership. That'll snap you out of your TDS.
I need to apologize to Jason for something, though, real quick. Jason, as a white man, I just want to say this to you. I'm sorry for not being taller. I'm sorry that I'm short.
What is sorry?
Sorry, it's been hanging out with
the same as sorry?
Sorry.
Been hanging out with the Canadians, I think.
I feel like I owe that to you.
Yeah, no, you don't owe me any apologies. No apologies for being white butter on this show.
Hey, Reese Burkhart, by the way, I want to get that's the Texas Tech kicker. If you have the balls to do that with your MAGA shirt, you get your name set on this show. Reese Burkhart.
So let's look at the other side of this from a familiar source, typical source. Gregg Popovich, after an NBA game, Spurs coach, went on a tirade about Trump. It went about 4 or 5 minutes. I think we got about 2.5 minutes of it. Here's Gregg Popovich going off on Donald Trump.
So he's pathetic. He's small. He's a whiner. We all know that. But you wouldn't have him babysit your kids. You wouldn't hire him if you had a small business. You want that man in your business? There's no way. But you're going to vote for him for president because he's strong? I mean, Kamala Harris whipped his ass in the debate, just obviously, and he's running ever since. He doesn't want any part of her because, as she said before, she's eaten many of his type for lunch. As an attorney general, as a prosecutor, he's a small fry compared to some of the people she's gone after. And he knows it. So all he can do is cut people down, and do what he does. We've all seen all that kind of stuff. The ones that you can be even more angry about, because he's sick. He's a damaged man. He grew up the biggest wannabe there ever was in New York, right? We all know that. He wanted to be in the inner circle, but they laughed at him his whole life. Just like Obama made fun of him at that dinner, and he was about to melt. That angered him so bad, it was scary. But he was never accepted. He was treated like a fool, like a clown. And now he's able to just give the finger to the world because of his position now. And that's what he's doing. He's getting back at everybody because he's so small, he's got to go after everybody, just like we all know the generals and Mike Pence and all that. We've all heard that before. But those people around him, the Grahams, the Cruzes, the Hawleys, the Meadows, McCarthy, McConnell, all those guys, all older white men, which so happens to be, they know he's an ass. They said it. I'm not saying that I think they think that. They've told us that ever since, 2015, 16, all that kind of thing. I mean, they've called him a xenophobic,
policies
a religious
at any
bigot,
point, Greg?
a racist, unfit for office, on and on and on. Their words. But they're right there with him. Do they not know that they have children and grandchildren probably that are going to lose freedom if this guy is elected? I'm not talking about a policy. I'm talking about the idea of our country.
Yeah, so policies don't matter, Steve. Only Trump's personality. If we don't stop Trump's personality, the policies are irrelevant. Anyway, Popovich, your thoughts?
Couple things. Turns out all these years he really should have been the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. Him and Cuban would have gotten along famously, two peas in a pod there. And number two, I'm beginning to think Pop may have gone to some Diddy parties. I mean, you want to talk about a guilty conscience. And here's the thing that irks me, but I get it. Because as a media member, you're there to cover the NBA and the San Antonio Spurs in the games. But is there nobody that's going to say, Coach, we really don't care, number one, what you think politically, and number two, if I disagree with you, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And one specific thing that Pop said that I think needs to be refuted, this whole notion that Trump didn't fit in. Look, he was one of the players in New York. He was an insider. He was part of the cool group. But I do want to ask Popovich this. Have you ever won an NAACP Lifetime Achievement Award for what you've done to help people? I mean, not giving them load management. Yeah, you helped out a lot of black guys, giving them a day off from work. That I guess that should be commended. But this is the fact. In the 80s, Donald Trump won those awards. Have you? And why not?
I don't. Pop bothers me on just multiple levels. And he's the tough guy that never faces resistance, never looks for resistance. He's, whatever we think of Floyd Mayweather and him ducking fighters out of his prime, when has Pop offer himself up to go on Fox News? I'm sure they'd love to have him and love to go back and forth with him on this. But it's like they all know that Trump is this bad guy and he's this mean person and he's all these things. Okay, the other side sits there, Popovich, and says, you all knew, and everybody around Joe Biden knew, his cognitive ability was zero. and they lied about it and protected him and ignored it. So let's say all these things are true, which they're not, but politicians' ability to ignore what's obvious, that seems like that's part of the job. And I never heard you complaining about the fact that Joe Biden clearly is in such bad cognitive shape that he had to be replaced by Kamala Harris, and they all ignored it for 4 years or 3.5 years. Pop's a fraud, and he's the bully that he claims that Trump is. I've seen Trump sit down. He went to the National Association of Black Journalists, enemy territory, sat down and took an hour's worth of questioning from people that he knew hated him. When does Pop ever do that? Pop has bullied people on sideline reporters for years, and no one had the courage to say anything about it. Pop is projecting a lot here, TJ.
Well, look, I mean, as far as we're talking about your personal life, I'm pretty sure that Joe Biden's own daughter called him a pedophile. And so everybody just allowed that to go on. And if we want, look, people don't like when you talk about their kids, but if we're getting into personal life and who you are, you do need to see the product of what you're creating. We've all heard of Hunter Biden, but we can actually go to Kamala Harris's kids. They're not her own kids, but she helped raise them once they were 15 or so. Her kids look awful, disastrous. They're the blue-haired crazies, okay? You go look at the grandkids. One, Trump had a kid when he was 60, so he has an 18-year-old right now. You can actually see what his kids look like. Barron Trump looks like one. I mean, he's actually helping put his campaign together. He's the one setting up all these podcasts. Pretty brainiac kid. Look at his grandkid who stood up at the RNC and gave a speech. These are the products of what's actually coming.
It's called fruit.
Yes, this is the fruit of what's.
Fruit inspector, I think, is what
Shemeka
loves to say. Yeah.
But this is, you don't like his personality. His personality is creating some wonderful things. What is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' personality creating?
Personality is no different than Popovich's. That's what drives me crazy. Popovich is a bully coach. And it's just if Popovich hated Bobby Knight, okay, there's some consistency here, but it's not like we haven't seen guys like Trump before. American history has been made by guys, bullies, and stubborn people, and politically incorrect people. It's like
Trump's actually likable. This is the thing. I get very frustrated with Christians because they're up in arms about it. I'm like, listen, you actually love Donald Trump. You just pretend you don't because people are upset that you like him. Quit with the pretending. He's hilarious. Anybody that's ever sat in a room with him has felt like $1 million. You sit around. He can command a room for 3 hours. Doesn't he? Nobody likes Pop. When has Pop ever made you smirk or smile? He's just so mean that you're kind of uncomfortable and you're like, oh man, I can't believe he said that. And then you move on. Pop's not a likable guy.
Fraudulent. Pop is ex-military and he's some sort of psyop. He's very fraudulent. But hey, Steve, you got a final thought? If not, I'm gonna move on to some other football stuff.
My dream sequence for one of these press conferences are the San Antonio Spurs, since there's nothing interesting going on in the actual, NBA games. I would love for a black reporter who's actually going to vote for Trump and has no problems admitting it and be a conservative. I'd like to see him raise his hand. Hey, Coach White Giltovich, I'd like to ask you, as someone who's going to vote for Trump as a man of color, what would you say to a guy like me? I believe he would stumble and stammer, because at that point, now he has an issue. He's not going to be nearly as courageous. He's not going to be as brave, and he knows he better not talk down to him, because this is what a lot of white liberals do. They infantilize minorities. They've done it for years. They get away with it, but they will never do it in their face. And that would be a catch-22 for White Giltovich.
Guys, before we move on, I want to talk to you about something I saw this weekend. And Shemeka and I will talk about this on Extra Fearless. You got to be a Fearless Mission subscriber to get this extra content, but it connects to something I saw this weekend. This connects to preborn. There's a Harris Walls rally going on, and outside of it, there's a Trump supporter and Harris Walls supporters, and they're going back and forth. And at one point, this young white woman looks to be in her late 20s, early 30s. She starts shouting in the face of this baby that's in a stroller. It's like a 2-3-year-old baby. She's right in the face, screaming and yelling. And because the father's a Trump supporter, he's holding the Bible. And when I saw it, I was like, this is the Democrat Party. This is the face. This is the kind of animus people that are pro-abortion have towards children. This is a mindset, a derangement that children are evil, children are disposable, children can be destroyed at the whim of a woman's emotion. This is what the Democrat Party is all about and is based on as it relates to these feminist women. We have to do something about it. And preborn is the best thing I know to do about it, because preborn provides expectant mothers an ultrasound and helps that woman come to understand, like, no, there's a baby inside of you, not a fetus, not a clump of cells. Let me introduce you to the heartbeat. Let me introduce you to an image of this baby growing inside of you. Once that happens, that woman is now twice as likely to choose life. And that's when preborn really steps in and steps up and supports that woman throughout the pregnancy and throughout the first 2 years of that baby's life outside the womb. Preborn is amazing. One ultrasound costs $28, 5 ultrasounds, $140. Whatever you give, whether it's $28, $140, $2,800, $2.8 million, whatever it is, it all goes to funding ultrasounds. Our money's not wasted on mid-level executives in their summer homes. There's 2 ways to give. Pound 250, say the keyword baby. Pound 250, say the keyword baby. Or give the way that I prefer to give, preborn.com/fearless, preborn.com/fearless. Steve, I want to circle back to the NFL. 2 teams are having really, really disappointing seasons. The New York Jets finally have a healthy Aaron Rodgers. They've got Devontae Adams now. I think this was his second week. They figured out a way. They figured out a way to lose to the Patriots. I think the Jets are now 2-5, either 2-5 or 2-6. This season, and Aaron Rodgers looks like a disaster. They have one of the most talented quarterbacks in NFL history. He was there to bring them a Super Bowl. They may not make the playoffs. They may finish last in their division. They just lost to the Patriots, a team that the Jacksonville Jaguars ran roughshod over, jammed it down their throat. They fired their coach. That doesn't seem to work. They seem like they'd have been better off with Robert Saleh. And then on the other side, there's the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones pays Dak Prescott $60 million a year. $60 million a year. Dak Prescott's throwing interceptions every time I turn around. He threw 2 yesterday. He looked terrible against the 49ers, cost him the game, and I know they had a chance at the end to win it. And Dak actually threw a good long downfield pass. Of the three of his last 4 passes were not good, but there was one that should have been a big play. But anyway, who's the bigger disaster and disappointment? The New York Jets or the Dallas Cowboys? I'm going to go Jets here, Steve, just because they got Aaron Rodgers. They got one of the most talented quarterbacks in the history of football, and they can't get anything done. Dallas has a guy that's overpaid and should have never gotten that contract. I think the Jets are a bigger disappointment than the Cowboys.
Well, Jason, this is like asking what was the worst cruise, the Costa Concordia or the Poseidon Adventure. I mean, they're both bad, but I agree with you in this sense. The Jets went all in on one player. I mean, everything was centered around a Hall of Fame quarterback that they hoped they could squeeze a year or 2 in, and they're not making any type of progress. And the playoff runs for both teams are over. I would say the short term, the Jets still have a pretty good young nucleus outside of Rodgers. The Cowboys have an issue. They're stuck with that albatross of a contract with Dak Prescott. And this is where Jerry Jones showed once again he may not be the most effective general manager, to say the least. He bowed to the pressure of certain media members who believed that Dak Prescott needed to get his money, and they were going to use certain racial cards that if he didn't get the money to prove that somehow Jerry Jones is this evil person. And now you're stuck with a quarterback who really, here's the alarming thing, Jason. Everyone talks about Aaron Rodgers' lack of movement or mobility. Jason, Dak Prescott can't move anymore. When I see him try to extend plays, he moves like a glacier. He absolutely does. And the ability now to extend plays is gone. And yeah, we could talk about the drop at the end of the game from Corbin. Jason, when you throw 3 interceptions in the game to begin with, you put your team in that position to begin with. So I would say in the short term, it is the Jets. But again, I don't know how long the Jets are really going to be stuck with Aaron Rodgers. I do know this, based on that contract, they may be stuck, the Dallas Cowboys, with Dak Prescott for a little bit longer than they want to be.
Butter, before you get in here and defend your boy Aaron Rodgers, I want to play you this clip of Aaron Rodgers talking about the darkness that the Jets have fallen into. Let's play slot number 1.
Call this a moment of darkness for this team. Is that how you see it, and how do you get out of it? I mean, because you could just stay in darkness as well.
Yeah, I've been in the darkness. You got to go in there, make peace with it. Offensively, our goal has just got to be score 30. Doesn't matter what the other two sides are doing. You know, we have trust in our defense and teams, but if we're not scoring 30, we're underachieving. This offense can do that every single week.
Thanks, sir.
Aaron Rodgers is a shot fighter to me. All the passes are off his back foot, leaning backwards. I just think he's lost his mojo. Butter, you know, he's kind of a tall Russell Wilson at this point.
Well, I did mention a few years ago at the ACM Awards, he did call me out on liking my style. So we know he's got good perception. Here's the thing. In my opinion, it's still early. This is the eighth game that this guy has been behind center for the Jets. He got hurt in the first game last year. To some degree, I understand it doesn't look good, but when we compare him to Dak Prescott and where the Cowboys are and that team that's been together for the last 4 or 5 years, I still think we need to give this guy a little time. This offense, they have a brand new head coach. There's been a lot of moving parts. Devontae Adams just coming to the team. Let's give it another game or two before I'm ready to say that this is a lost cause.
Yeah, there's always hope when you're Aaron Rodgers and you have that resume. But if you're watching, this guy is it's like I'll give a Steve Kim analogy. It's like Larry Holmes versus Muhammad Ali, and he's not Larry Holmes in this fight. He looks like Ali, a shot fighter. And Devontae Adams, I thought, looked like garbage too. Garrett Wilson outplayed Devontae Adams. Mm-hmm. They may have doubled down on just more bad investment.
Look, they should have known it was over when instead of going to mandatory OTAs, he was smoking ayahuasca in Egypt. It's a pretty obvious. You tore your Achilles in your first series when you're 40 years old with your new team. And instead of coming back and trying to get in sync and saying, guys, this is going to be way harder than it was even going to be last year when I was 40, because now I'm 40 and my legs don't work. We got to dial this in. He said, it'd be great if I could smoke some ayahuasca, puke for a while, and pretend it was the greatest thing that ever happened to anybody, and then go talk to Joe Rogan about it. And then talk about becoming the vice president for Robert F. Kennedy. Yeah. They should have known it was over at that point. This guy, I actually am a Rodgers fan. We've talked about it only because of the vaccine stuff, because take the vaccine stuff out, and I'm not a Rodgers fan, not remotely, because he's not serious about football. And why would you want that guy to be the head of your football team?
He's not serious about football anymore. Wouldn't that be a bit more accurate? Anymore?
I don't know if he was ever an obsessive guy. While Tom Brady lived and breathed football, Aaron Rodgers was always the free thinker. Guys, there's more to football. Relax. I got this. Trust me. I never saw him as a guy that was obsessed with it.
Steve?
Jason, to TJ's point, look, do I think he's serious about football? Yeah, it's his profession, but is he as serious as you want your franchise quarterback, who is the nucleus of that whole team in terms of how they feel and how they play? No. Tom Brady for years until the last year or two showed up to everything, as did Peyton Manning for the most part. But again, those guys had equity. They were there for 10, 15, almost 20 years or more than a decade plus. and they were always there. You get a little bit of a break at the end. When you are a guy that played 3 plays the season before, you kind of owe it to that franchise that invested everything into you to put away the retreats. You're not going on vacation. You're going to everything, whether it's mandatory or not. And Butter, to your point, you're right. They're only 2-6. It's a 17-game regular season. I don't think that the odds or the percentages are really good that a 2-6 team can make a playoff. I think most probably don't. This is not like a 3-game losing streak in the NBA in the middle of December. I get that. This is a 17-game regular season. So when you're 2-6, I think the odds are that you don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, they are 2-6, and I just don't see them recovering because these things just build on themselves. The finger pointing, they've already changed coaches, they've changed play callers. They're 4 games behind the Buffalo Bills. You know, you got the AFC North with you're going to have Pittsburgh and Baltimore coming out of there, 2 playoff teams. You know, Denver Broncos are going to be a playoff team. The Chargers are going to be in the playoff hunt. The math just ain't mathing for them in some sort of recovery. And it's kind of weird. They've only been outscored by 20 points, so they've lost a bunch of close games. But the difference is just Aaron Rodgers has been straight trash. Steve, I want to ask you about the incredible ending and we'll save part of the incredible ending for another conversation, but a Hail Mary, the Washington Commanders knock off the Chicago Bears. Terrific ending. Jim Nantz with a awesome call of that. I just happened to be watching that last-second deal. Jim Nantz's call was very exciting. Hail Mary gets answered. The Commanders moved to 6-2. Jaden Daniels continues to perform at a level that I just don't think anyone expected. How seriously should we take the Washington Commanders?
I think they've been one of the great stories of the early part of 2024. But, Jason, we're only halfway home now. I get the sense they are going to come back down to earth. The one thing we know about the National Football League is once you come around that rotation of the first games and film starts to get out, teams will start to defend this Cliff Kingsbury offense led by Daniels a little bit differently. And you've already seen a little bit of a decline in his numbers. And the other thing that I worry about Jaden Daniels, and I said this back during the draft process, he takes way too many unnecessary hits. Every time he gets out there and he gets out of the pocket, I hold my breath because he does not do a great job of protecting himself and hook sliding to safety. So that's always going to be a threat to happen. But it's a fun offense. It's a very bright team. They have some mojo. But the NFL has a way of bringing everybody back down to earth over the long haul. Look, I don't think they're going to completely fall apart. But do I see them winning their division? The answer is no.
Yeah, not going to win their division. I think Philadelphia's caught a little fire here, winning 3 straight. They're not going to win the division. But they're obviously greatly improved from a year ago from when they had Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell. It's like Sam Howell fell off the face of the earth. Is he backup quarterback somewhere?
Yes,
I mean, he was the quarterback of the future. Just a few, this hot guy. Anyway, disappeared, and now they've gone a completely different. They ran off Dan Snyder, and so I know a lot of people are going to say, see, they just need to get rid of the owner, and everything's different now. I agree with you. I think they're going to come back down to earth. I want to move on and connect something that happened at the end of this game. Steve, have you seen the video? Let's start with Tyreek Stevenson. This is the defensive back for the Chicago Bears who was taunting fans right before the Hail Mary play. Let's watch that video. And he's had the issue an apology for, not taking it more seriously. I think he put out something over Twitter. But that's not all the interesting things that happened over the weekend. Anthony Richardson, the Colts quarterback, I think this is in the third quarter. He scrambles around, gets tackled, and I think this was like the third straight play. He had run the ball, and it got to be third down. He tapped the front of his helmet, Steve. He tapped out.
He's tired.
And
Come on. Never been fatigued in a football game, Jason? Come on.
All the time. Like, literally from play one on, I was tired.
Well, you weren't the quarterback,
but never
still,
tapped out.
Yeah, I get it.
Never tapped out. Let's play shot number 6. This is Anthony Richardson explaining why he took himself out of the game.
Man, tired. I ain't gonna lie. That was a lot of running right there that I did, and I don't think I was gonna be able to go that next play. So I just, just told Sam I just needed a break right there.
That's fascinating. A quarterback taps out on a critical third down play and cops to it afterwards. I guess that's better than lying. But then there's one other play that caught my moment that caught my interest. Trayvon Diggs, defensive back for the Dallas Cowboys. There's a reporter in Dallas that tweeted out a highlight of Trayvon Diggs looking to make a business decision on whether to tackle George Kittle. He slows up around the 20-yard line, and then he speeds up, but it just didn't look like. TJ, does that look like the proper hustle there from Diggs?
He ain't running.
Yeah, it looks like he's made a business decision. He doesn't want to have too much contact with George Kittle. Reporter tweets this out and says, hey, what's Trayvon Diggs doing? After the game, Trayvon Diggs, he's immediately seen, he's got his phone, he's addicted to his phone, and he confronts the reporter. Let's play that clip.
Took from that? Out of that whole play, that's what you took from that? You don't know football. You can't do nothing that I do. You can't go out there and do nothing. Stay in your lane, buddy. Stop playing me, bro.
Just asking the question, Trayvon. I mean, I'm happy to have you answer the question.
Out of that whole play, that's what you took for that? That's what you got from that whole play, that's what you got from that?
I'm asking. We can talk about it more. What were you doing then?
Okay.
Steve, your thought of those three,
okay.
What's the worst look of those three?
All right, couple things. Tyreek Stevenson went to the U. God, not a good look. And when I saw that play, the voice of the great Tom Jackson reverberated in my mind. Knock it down! I don't understand what's going on. I see more and more Hail Marys completed now because players are being selfish or they're not being coached to do the right thing. Second of all, Anthony Richardson is just practicing because when he gets moved to tight end or wide receiver, he's going to be tired a lot from all the running around he did. If his avatar or an emoji was about what he was as a player, it would be a lemon. He looks more and more like a bust, and shame on the Colts for drafting a quarterback that basically completed 50% of his passes in his last year at Florida. Everyone knew this was going to happen. It's no surprise. But yeah, Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs showed more aggression against that reporter than he did in any play. And I have a question for Trayvon Diggs, to that media guy. Yeah, he's staying in his lane. The reporter asked a question. Now, was he being snarky? Was he being a smartass? Yeah, we've all done it. Let's just come clean. But the reporter did not say, I could have done a better job or I would have done this. He's asking a question related to the effort. Now, Jason, looking at that play again, you can make an argument that Diggs in that position was slowing down to take away the cutback angle because Kittle can do some amazing things with that football. The only problem is, as I look at that play again, there was someone in front of him that had already taken away the cutback angle. So right there, you got to be able to speed up. And I'm just telling you, there would be coaches like one that we know, JB, he would replay that play 50 times and he would ask, what the are you doing? I mean, you've been in film sessions, guys, where they're like, guy does that, they just replay it over and over again. Let's just be honest about it. And then for Diggs to say, well, I'm not going to speak to the media. Really? After all that, you're not going to go out there and explain yourself and say, hey, guys, this is why I did that on that play. To not give an explanation, after being very hostile to a reporter who, by the way, to his credit, was willing to talk it out. Again, the digs are going to dig.
I didn't hear a ruling on that. I'm going to go Anthony Richardson looks the worst. We've seen guys make business decisions in football plenty. Deion made a lot of them, and he's in the Hall of Fame. We've seen guys think a game was over, not as bad as Tyreek Stevenson, but then he did go back and get involved in the play and actually tried to knock the ball down. Anthony Richardson, to me, TJ, just destroyed himself as a leader.
Yeah.
He tapped out of a critical part of the game. This is something I've heard Michael Irvin talk about. I've heard a lot of guys say, you just don't tap out and recover from that as a leader.
You remember the old Vince Lombardi quote, fatigue makes coward of us all?
Ooh.
That is the first thing I thought about.
Yes.
Fatigue makes cowards of us all. I remember watching this on NFL films when I was 10 years old. The Rams are in a Super Bowl, and they've got Dick Vermeil's on the sideline. And the two most notable defensive linemen on the team at the time, Kevin Carter, I think, led the league in sacks that year, and DeMarco Farr. It is the final drive. They're trying to win the Super Bowl. Steve McNair's got the ball at the 10, and they both tap out, and Dick Vermeil's going, it's the last play of the Super Bowl. What are you doing? You're tapping out. I think they ended up getting saved by a timeout, came back in on the final play, but it's fatigue makes cowards of us all. The difference for me is you're the quarterback. A defensive lineman, I mean, whether it should be different when you're trying to win the Super Bowl and it's the last play, but your quarterback saying, guys, I got nothing more to give. You're the quarterback. Stay in there and throw the ball. I don't understand. Turn around and hand the ball off. I have no... Tapping out as the quarterback when you're back. We've seen this across the league when the backup quarterback goes in, and I get it's a little bit different from them because he's been injured, but the backup quarterback goes in, you lose the game every time. That's how it works.
Not a good look. Butter, you guys?
Yeah. I get it all. The person that looks the worst in this is the reporter. Just reminds me of a kid yelling at the kids across the street, running in my house, standing behind my mom, knowing that they're not going to do nothing to me because I'm standing behind my mom or I got the door shut. This reporter acting all big and bad with his cockatiel out, knowing that guy can't do anything to him there. To me, he commented on the play. He was behind the play. He just slowed down a little bit. It looked like he was going out of bounds. He made a personal shot at that guy and then stood behind his co-workers and acted like some peacock out there. That reporter is the one that should be the most embarrassed.
Can I be the first to call for the butter box? I've not gotten to do it before. We got to have the butter box.
Look at that guy out there peacocking because he knows that Trayvon can't do anything right there.
Well, you can't ask a question without expecting to get beat up. I don't understand the inference here.
I know that position well, and I think it was embarrassing.
Listen. I know that position well of asking questions that are going to anger professional athletes. And I wasn't standing there thinking like, hey, there's no chance this guy's going to take a swing at me. Many guys took swings at me and came after me in locker rooms. I don't think that's what the reporter was doing. He tweeted something out and was like, hey, what is he doing on this play? And then he's like, well, dang, if I'm going to tweet it out, I might as well ask the guy about it. That's my job. He was doing his job, and he was willing to live with the consequences. Butter, have you seen...
Fake bravado. That's what that was. Fake bravado.
Oh, wait a minute, Butter,
when he did it.
Wait a minute, Butters.
From the reporter. The reporter acted like he was standing toe-to-toe with that guy. You know that he was doing that based on where he was located.
It's an intellectual conversation. He didn't say, hey, let's go out there and I can do this better than you, Trayvon. Watch me do it. I'll never lack hustle. He said, hey, man, what were you doing? My job's a reporter. I got to ask you what you're doing.
Right there, Diggs' behavior right there shows you the malignant cancer that exists, that has been created, fostered, and allowed and enabled by Jerry Jones, that you fall to 2-6, your season is falling apart, and the first thing you do is check Twitter, and you go, oh, let me find that reporter. I don't know. I would say the word priorities comes to mind, and I believe, and again, whether he was justified or not, I think it's a terrible look, and he embarrassed himself. Now, again, you look at the play, you can interpret it any way you want. The reporter had a question. All right. If I'm Trevon Diggs, what I would have done is on Monday, if I see him in the facility, in the locker room, I'll just say, hey, buddy, can I talk to you? And actually have a calm, somewhat civil conversation and say, hey, look, I think that was unfair. This is my side of it. And you get angry at the guy. But I would say in terms of peacocking, Diggs is more guilty of it than the reporter.
Steve, I'm going to make an analogy here and I'm telling Butter's got me in a mind deal. I think this is intentional trolling, but I can't be for sure.
Yeah.
I got to say, Butter is being very clever with how he screws with me mentally. This is such a dumb take that I actually think he's doing it on purpose, trying to just mess with my mind. But Steve, I want to, what Butter's actually thinking is that take John Stossel in the Vince McMahon documentary where they go back and what was the guy's name? Dave Schultz
Dr.
slapped
D.
John
David
Stossel.
Schultz. Dr. D.
David Schultz. Yeah. And I can remember this when I was a kid. Everybody knows wrestling is a work, that it's, a mix of phoniness and athleticism and all that. And John Stossel's going, hey, is wrestling real? And he's coming at Dave Schultz. And he was peacocking. Everybody knows. Dave Schultz is sitting there going, yeah, man, who wins and loses is rigged here. But you're questioning whether or not I'm risking my physical health out here doing this wrestling stuff. And so he slapped John Stossel. And I was like, when I was a kid, I liked it then. And as an adult, I still like it now. Because what the wrestlers are doing, all that falling and hitting each other, that's a physical consequence. And so Dave Schultz was like going, is that fake? Because that's what we do to each other. I get hit like this out here all the time, and you're calling it fake. Now, does that fake to you? You hear your eardrum burst, buddy? Because his eardrum burst, and he sued Dave Schultz, and he goes, this is what I deal with all the time. We have bursted eardrums. The blood you see coming out of us, this isn't fake. And so that was peacocking. This was just a guy asking a question. I can't believe it. Butter, I will give you credit. You just extended this conversation and made it far more interesting than I anticipated.
It's the truth.
We agree there is one more. The fact that Diggs, your default of not, hey man, you know what you're looking at. You could never do what I do. I can't stand that. That tells you he lost the argument. That's the You're not the. Come on out here, buddy. Do what I do. It's like nah.
Nah, I don't want a 4-2-40. I can't. Yeah. Go ahead.
Guys, I wonder if Diggs goes to a restaurant and doesn't like the meal. Does the chef come out and say, listen, buddy, I have Michelin stars to my name. You can't do what I do. Why don't you just microwave a hungry man dinner next time? The athletes that say that, they're the biggest hypocrites. Like, I don't like this rapper. Really? Where's your platinum albums, buddy? Anyway.
Butter, hats off to you, because I'm so confused. I don't know whether to put you in the butter box or applaud you. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about Kalshi. You have an opportunity to who will win the presidential election. Kalshi is the first and only legal prediction market in the United States. After years of working with the federal government, Kalshi got historical regulatory approval from the CFTC that enabled it to offer a new asset class called event contracts, which allow traders to take positions on whether a future event will happen or not. Like with stocks or commodities, people can now trade on any event that has economic or social relevance to them. People use these markets to make money from their opinion/knowledge or to hedge risks they face. Additionally, when people trade on a question like who will win the United States presidency, Kalshi gets really accurate forecasts of whether the event will happen or not. Kalshi is already the most accurate forecast for a large range of future events, including economics, climate change, COVID, politics, tech, AI, science. Kalshi is the first legal and regulated place to trade on the outcome of the real world U.S. election. Trade with no fees and high liquidity on the election. Elections markets are currently free. Invest in your opinion about who will win and make trades from $1 to $100 million. Get started today with a $20 cash bonus after your first trade. Join today by going to Kalshi, that's KALSHI.com/fearless. That's Kalshi with a K, steve.com/fearless. Steve, going to circle back to you. Alex Smith had something very, very interesting to say about our boy Patrick Mahomes. Alex Smith is saying Patrick Mahomes has never played better. I think he's basing that off of, like, hey, look, the circumstances against Patrick have never been harder or more against him. Don't get caught up in the TD to interception ratio, 8 TDs, 9 interceptions. Get caught up in what he's doing without the level of support. But anyway, let's let Alex Smith explain, and then we'll get your take.
I love this hop trade. I think it's a great marriage. But like buried in this and then is something I've just heard this narrative the last couple weeks, and it's like, what's wrong with this Kansas City offense? And it's even gone even further now. And it's like, what's wrong with Patrick? And I just couldn't disagree even more. Like the facts are, listen, they've won back-to-back world championships. Right, receiver room was an issue. They went and addressed it. Marquise Brown, right, hasn't played a snap. He's on IR. Well, your emerging receiver and Rashee Rice, IR, out for the year, right? Oh, Isaiah Pacheco, your starting running back, out for the year, IR. All he's done is win football games. He's won 12 in a row, right? They beat the Baltimore Ravens twice in that span. They beat the Niners twice in that span. I would actually argue, I think, in the last year, this is the best football I've ever seen from Patrick. I think he's doing more with less than anybody in the NFL. Right?
He just waits till the fourth quarter to do it, right?
Well, and he happens to be the best there, too.
I think he just misspoke, or I would have said it differently. If he wanted to argue this is the most impressed I've been with Patrick Mahomes, I'd have no problem. But arguing this is the best I've seen from Patrick Mahomes, I think that's a bridge too far. I agree. Given all the shortcomings on the offense, I'm really impressed. They figured out a way to get to 7-0. I'm really impressed that Pat's maturity, he's not pressing anything. He's not out there hunting big plays, trying to fix his stats. He's not stat padding or stat hunting. He just wants to win. I'm impressed with Mahomes as a person and his maturity. I don't think this is the best we've seen Patrick Mahomes play.
Most of what Alex Smith said is factual and correct, and I agree with him. But to say it's the best he played, I wouldn't go that far. Jason, there was a segment of that Raider game yesterday that I thought really is emblematic of what the Chiefs are right now. So the Chiefs
Steve,
are
I
pinned
think
right
just
up
froze up. We will circle back to Steve. TJ?
Yeah, look, I'm not a huge Alex Smith fan. He of the NFL here. He's the former player who sort of lectures everybody else around him, and you guys don't know what you're looking at. Let me tell you what you're looking at. I can't stand that in analysts. And so that's what it felt like to me while he's sitting around, by the way, a Patriots Hall of Famer and Teddy Bruschi and a bunch of other players who do know what they're looking at.
Let me interject here just for one. Continue. Not to change your opinion, but I just want to go on record. Alex Smith's one of the best human beings I've ever met. Continue.
Fine. I don't know him as a human, but I do know him as an analyst from afar. I don't care for him. And so I don't like the lecture.
A guy nearly lost his leg on a football field, overcame it, and came back to play.
I liked him better as a player.
Huh?
I liked him better as a player.
All right, he's one of the best human beings I've ever met. Continue.
Just send me out on the hockey ice right now, and you won't like me as a player. I can be good at some things and bad at other things. I don't think he's a great analyst, and it's for that reason that, look, I'm not even totally disagreeing with what he's saying. I'm disagreeing that it's the best Patrick Mahomes has looked, and I can't stand the people like him making excuses for Patrick Mahomes when I don't care how many weapons you've lost. You have the greatest weapon in the NFL that's been in the NFL for 20 years. His name is Andy Reid, and those offenses produce open wide receivers, open holes, and a lot of points. And so it's just okay. Patrick's not playing that well right now. He's still the best quarterback in the NFL. I'd still take him over anybody else. But I don't love the lecturing from guys who, particularly a guy who was his teammate, who has reason to be biased to look around and say, you guys don't know what you're looking at. Let me tell you what you're looking at.
Well, how about, TJ, he's just giving a provocative take. That Patrick Mahomes is sitting here with 8 TDs and 9 interceptions, and he's just sitting there, hey, I got a take that again, I think there's a misuse of words. I'm speculating here, but I think he's saying this is the most impressed. He knows Patrick Mahomes relatively well, having played with him for a year, and he's sitting there saying, perhaps, I'm speculating, like, man, I didn't think Patrick would be able to handle having a down statistical year, stay in it mentally, not show any frustration. Mahomes' wife is a Trump supporter, and I think she's pulled Patrick a great direction. And so everything about Patrick Mahomes as he goes through this statistical struggle, I just keep looking like, man, what a guy Patrick Mahomes has turned into. His wife and he have stood out here, and he stood, again, I said it even before the Trump deal, I was like, man, the way Patrick Mahomes goes nowhere without his wife, I respect that. She's an attractive woman, but she's not some supermodel. He's not somebody that went out and got a Gisele Bundchen or whatever. This seems like the girl he's been dating since high school or college. It's like, man, I really respect that. I respect their relationship. I like the fact that she's standing out here as a conservative. I even like the fact that she's like, no, we still gonna be cool with Taylor Swift and all of this. I didn't
say that. Didn't say all that.
Well,
don't tell me my eyes are lying to me. Don't tell me you're the only one who knows football and the rest of us are retarded. That's what it felt like.
Steve.
Yeah, here's the thing. To TJ's point, he would still be the number one quarterback according to a lot of people. If you redrafted the whole NFL draft again of current players, he'd probably be number one. But there's a reality towards this, and I think it was encapsulated in a segment of the game that I happened to see yesterday. The Raiders had the Chiefs pinned down right by their own goal line.
And we'll come back in a couple minutes here. They said we're freezing up a little bit in Nashville.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, guys, if you can hear me, we'll take a little slight. Here's why this struck me so hard. As you heard me talk about late last week, talk about this week on the show, I voted for the first time in my life last Friday, and I voted for Donald Trump. And so when I hear Kamala Harris call Donald Trump Hitler, and the media has been doing this over and over and over again, when I hear her say that, I now really think of myself, because I voted for Donald Trump. And so she's calling me a Nazi. And she's calling all the people that are voting age and or not a voting age that support Trump. She's calling us Nazis. And I don't understand it. I really don't. I've asked myself, like, am I a Nazi? Am I following the modern day Adolf Hitler? And if so, how and what has he done? What has he suggested? What policies is he enacting that make him Adolf Hitler? And how did I get caught up where I'm a Nazi? And I'm bending over backwards trying to be fair, because I think Kamala Harris is satanic.
Being up 29-0 and losing a football game, I really don't. This is a little tough for me, and I'm trying my best. And I thank you all for your patience, and I thank you for your heart, because this is really tough for me.
Can you talk about Hank Zelinkas? He was a true freshman that got the start today at center. Hank Zelinkas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Hank.
Yeah, he got the start as a true freshman today at center. Can you talk about him?
CBS Sports Colorado.
CBS,
Tyler.
I'm not doing nothing with CBS. Next question.
Everybody, Buff Nation who supported us in all the hood that had my back, I thank y'all. God, this is good.
Kids got robbed during the game last week. I think that's a travesty, and I trust the recruiting team. I trust our coaches. And please have some faith in me. We good. We all right.
That's kind of threatening. Oh, they don't like that. But guess what? We're going to consistently do what we do, because I'm here and ain't going nowhere. And I'm about to get comfortable in a minute. I'm about to get comfortable in a minute.
But we are not an ATM. You're not coming here to get rich unless you really come here with a plan to go to the NFL and get your degree.
You know, we can sit up and talk about great coaching and great this and great that all we want. But it's gonna be a credit card swipe some kind of way with all these guys going to these playoffs, right? Right.
You better get me right now. This is the worst we're gonna be. You better get me right now. What's up, boss? You believe that?
Of all the
Hold on. Oh no. Do you believe in that?
Welcome to Extra Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Oh my God, Lyndon Johnson, his thoughts are so disgusting. I can't believe you would engage with him. The celebration for being a slut have never been greater. Why do you choose Taylor Swift, and why do you pick up a role as, let me help my woman undress on stage in front of an audience?
When I look at people like Sexy Red or Cardi B that we prop up, now I see that the white community as well is just as fried.
It does look to me like he made some eye contact with her and then just decided, nah, let me move on. The BET Awards seems like a psyop at this point. It's just Democratic brainwashing. Get in there and fight for all the things. Steve, that's it for you. I'm done. All right, welcome back. Steve Kim joining us from Los Angeles. TJ Moe, Butter here in studio with me in Nashville. Hey, we're going to move on to Jameis Winston. This is lighten things up a little bit, or maybe it's more serious. I don't know. But Jameis Winston leads the Cleveland Browns to an upset of the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. I watched all of that game, thought there was no way that Jameis Winston could come off the bench, hadn't started since 2022, couldn't come off the bench and lead them to victory. I agree with Jameis. There was a higher power involved. All them dropped interceptions that the Baltimore Ravens had, I've never seen anyone get as lucky as Jameis Winston. And I think they went 29-25, something like that. But after the game, Jameis Winston somehow goes from thanking Jesus Christ to quoting Eminem, the rapper. It was an amazing post-game interview. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Let's play the clip.
Jameis Winston making your first start since 2022. The word you used before the game was unwavering. How do you describe this victory?
Unwavering faith, ultimate belief, depending on the Lord, and depending on the Lord should have been first. He gets all the glory. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this win.
Talk to me about your team and the way they showed up today, coming off 5 consecutive losses. No one would have blamed you guys if you gave up. How did your guys show up this week in practice to get it done today against the Baltimore Ravens?
One play at a time. We fought. We gave everything that we could possibly give. Thank you for the offensive line. Thank you for the defensive line of winning the trenches. And thank you for the Browns fans for coming up and standing up and helping us get a victory here at home.
It's not often that you get another opportunity like you have just received in the NFL. What does it mean to lead these guys, and what could be the start of what you said is something special moving forward?
Man, it's a white boy from Detroit that I really admire named Eminem. He said, you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity lasts once in a lifetime. And I know I got a quote, Eminem, he from Detroit, he right up the road, but man, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that the Lord provided me with this opportunity. I'm grateful for my teammates, my coaches, and these amazing fans.
Unbelievable performance today. Congratulations, Jameis.
I gotta admit, I love Jameis Winston. I mean, I really do. I mean, he wears every bit of his emotions on his sleeves. I love his faith walk. I'm not sure how he got to Eminem from there, quite the path. Let me thank the Lord, and now let me thank this Satanist that raps about all this garbage. But at the end of the day, I love Jameis Winston. I love his heart. I love his as much as you laugh at him, I would love to play with him and for him. That's where I land on. I'm going to overlook the stupidity and just fall into his intentions are so positive and so good. And I'm actually, he's turned into an amazing personality that I think is going to end up, he's going to end up a very good broadcaster. He'll end up a different kind of Charles Barkley, I think. Steve, your thoughts on Jameis Winston?
You know, I hate to say this about a Seminole, but he's a national treasure. He has to be protected at all costs. You know, that's not even the funniest thing he said. That's not even the best interview he gave yesterday. The pregame interview he did, I believe, with CBS, where he looked directly into the camera. And then there was also when he came out with his teammates and he brought them in and he said, hey, guys, we play for the back of the name on our jersey and the logo on our helmet, even though we have no decals on our helmet. The guy's unbelievable. I actually wonder if he practices these speeches. I've never actually seen anyone be so unintentionally funny and motivating at the same time. Again, Jameis Winston is one of those few athletes today that is around that is unfiltered. I think he's uncensored. I do think he means well. And he's just, again, the most unintentionally funny guy in all of sports at the current moment.
So I was around Gronk for a very short time, and he had a little bit of this in him where he would just start talking. Now, the difference between Jameis and Gronk is Jameis is playing for the Browns here. There's no rules. There were a lot of rules when he played with the Patriots. So Gronk would just try to repeat what Belichick said, and in the end, he'd just say, Gronk, try play good football. And that's how it came out. So, but there is sort of the, I think he's trying. I mean, the guy is, and he's not quite quoting scripture, but he's trying. Like, football's a weird thing. You probably remember this from when you were playing. You can sit there reading scripture to get ready for a game, about 2 hours before the game, and then you put Little John in your ears, and those two things don't match up at all. And I am guilty of that.
Yeah,
I did all that. So it is very hard for me. I can't figure out how he connected the two. They weren't playing in Detroit. I have no idea. They were in Baltimore. I don't know what was going on. Throwing stones from a glass house. I listened to Eminem. I listened to Little John. I listened to Lil Wayne. They were all my pregame stuff, even though I didn't believe in any of the stuff they were saying.
It's football to play it well, even at the quarterback position, but at the more physical positions, you do have to go to a really dark place. And you spend a lot of your pregame time just trying to get to a dark place where you're angry and motivated. And that's why guys that come from really tough backgrounds play it at the highest level most consistently. There were guys that could tap into it during practice and all week during practice, where someone like me who never missed a meal, and yes, I was poor my senior year of high school, but still never missed a meal, and really enjoyed my little one-bedroom apartment with my dad and me and all that. I just didn't have as much darkness to tap into as some of my other teammates who played the game 5 days a week. You don't hit on Sundays, you don't hit on Mondays, but they could be physical and tap into that dark energy, and they can certainly tap into it on Saturdays, on game days. It's just, and so that is the dichotomy of the dynamics of football, is that, it's kind of a religious experience, and it's also a very secular, dark experience.
I kind of just wanted to say this real quick. I'd like to thank God and MySpace for my performance here today on Fearless. I always get the impression that Jameis Winston is like on a game show, and he's got the magic 8 ball. And the reporter asks him a question, and he has to answer with what the magic 8 ball says, because it never quite lines up to the actual question that's being asked.
Steve, final thought, we'll move on.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how the Browns function with what, in essence, is their third cornerback. Remember, it was Dorian Thompson-Robinson was really the backup, and, he expressed a lot of support for Deshaun Watson, who looks like he's going to be out an extended time, probably won't play football till at least next year. But you're seeing a particular pattern where some of these highly touted quarterbacks don't play very well, and suddenly these older veteran backups who are much better in the pocket than outside of it, suddenly these offenses look functional. I just find that really, really interesting. And the one thing you're going to get with Jameis Winston, and this has been the track record, a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, and unfortunately, a lot of interceptions. But I do believe this. The Browns week to week will be a much more entertaining team and a much more functioning passing offense.
I read somewhere where maybe Deshaun Watson had played 16 games or so for the Cleveland Browns and never threw for 300 yards. And Jameis Winston did it yesterday, coming right out of the box. There's some of it, though, that I'm a little suspicious of, just in terms of whether it can continue, because the guy, he fumbled the ball on a sack, and the Ravens dropped. Right even before the game-winning touchdown, they dropped an easy interception, but the Ravens dropped about 3 or 4 interceptions yesterday. I don't know if this will continue, if this is just a one-off. The Browns did seem more formidable on offense with Jameis Winston throwing the ball downfield. That was it. I halfway felt sorry for Deshaun Watson watching that yesterday, because I was like, these are all nails in Deshaun Watson's coffin. He just, the Browns, the better Jameis plays, the more success. We saw it last year with Joe Flacco. They put Flacco in there and they were better. They made it to the playoffs. Now they put Winston in there and they're better. Deshaun Watson is done. Steve, how concerned should we be for the Baltimore Ravens yesterday? Lamar Jackson, there was a lot of balls dropped yesterday, 3 or 4, that could have made a difference by Lamar's receivers. The game plan seemed crazy to me. Derrick Henry carried the ball 11 times for 70-some-odd yards. He got 11 carries against the Cleveland Browns. The guy that's on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record only got 11 carries in a game that was never out of hand. The dropped interceptions. I was watching this game and I was like, hey, what is up? This is the craziest game I've ever seen. Lamar looks like trash. They won't give the ball to Derrick Henry. They're dropping interceptions. Were they all out at a Cleveland strip club the night before? How concerned about the Baltimore Ravens should we be?
Well, look, the Ravens to me are still very talented, but there comes a point where there's an undefeated team that's 8-0, and we keep saying, no, the team that's 5-3 is better. You know what? Bill Parcells had some words of wisdom years ago about the National Football League. You are what your record says you are. And I think, Jason, me and you have got to come down and say maybe the Ravens are just the 3rd or 4th best team right now, and let's check in on them in January and hopefully February for their sake. But, Jason, when you have Derrick Henry and you have the ability to pound people physically and then to control the clock, one of the ways you can help a vulnerable defense and make them better is keep them off the field. It's an old precept. Time of possession actually does matter here and there. And when you give that guy only 11 carries, it's like having a Maserati and never taking it out of the garage. That was a faulty game plan. In my view, sometimes less Lamar Jackson equals a better Baltimore Ravens. I think yesterday was an example of that.
Yeah, they seem committed to trying to win the game with Lamar's arm, and the receivers let him down. Lamar missed some open receivers. That was a goofy, kooky game, and I watched a lot of that game. That was not a good football game for the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, it's made me, I have some concerns. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm sure, feel great and feel confident about, hey, the Ravens aren't unbeatable, and with our defense, we can certainly give them some problems. And with, Baltimore's defense, that's the other issue. And I know they had some injuries. Marlon Humphrey was out. I think another DB was out. The Ravens defense looked very, very vulnerable. Ravens took some shine off themselves yesterday. All right, hold on, everybody. Stand down. Take everybody off. Give me 5-10 minutes here. I got to unpack some things here. Give you guys my daily dose of Deion Sanders. Because, the Buffaloes are 6-2. and all my enemies are gathering up and laughing at me. And Whitlock, when you gonna give Deion his flowers? Great friend and someone I respect a great deal. Joel Klatt, the Fox Sports college football, the voice of college football for Fox Sports, former Buffalo quarterback, has been on this show. He's a big Deion Buffalo supporter. Joel Klatt tweeted out Saturday or Sunday, Colorado was the worst team in the P5 2 years ago. Deion Sanders came to Boulder as their head coach, and now they're 6-2, headed to a bowl game. 4-1 in the Big 12 with an outside shot at the Big 12 title game. Where you at, haters? That's Joel Klatt. Before I respond, let me walk you through the rest of Colorado's schedule. At Texas Tech, hosting Utah, at Kansas, and Oklahoma State. Kansas is having a terrible year. I still like Lance Leopold, the coach. That makes them dangerous. Texas Tech, they can score. We'll see what happens there. Utah's lost its quarterback. Oklahoma State's having a really bad year. Mike Gundy can coach. I mean, could we be looking at a 10-2 Colorado team? And look, they would get blasted by BYU, in my opinion, in the Big 12 title game. BYU is pretty good. BYU's got some defensive linemen that are pretty good that would cause Colorado a lot of problems. But Joel's right. They have an outside shot at a Big 12 championship. What do I say to that? How you win matters. And much of my criticism of Deion Sanders has been about his approach to building that football program. And I didn't think it would work, his approach. His approach is not good, but it is working. His approach is not healthy, but it is working. I think that speaks to the corrupt system that has been built in college athletics. And it disappoints me that we've built a corrupt system. It's no different than, let's look at the music industry. And again, I've told you all, used to like rap music. But rap music in the music industry is so corrupt, so perverted, so evil that rappers that rap about killing and stealing and drug dealing and all that can reach the top of the music profession. They can perform at halftime. That speaks to how corrupt the music industry is. It doesn't say, hey, Snoop Dogg is right. What it says is the system is so corrupt that corrupt people now reach the top. And so, yes, are the Colorado Buffaloes improved? Absolutely. Only a fool would say that they're not. Their defensive side of the football, particularly their front seven, and their whole unit, because between Travis Hunter, and I can't think of number 7's name right off the top of my head, but he's a safety, he's a really good player. The other two corners that play opposite Travis Hunter, their defense is improved. Hats off to them. Offense is dangerous because there's speed on the outside, their receivers are talented, and Shedeur Sanders can get them the ball, and the offensive line has improved. Colorado has improved. The system has been changed in a way that someone like Deion could come in, work the transfer portal, work name, image, and likeness, and buy up enough talent to be competitive. Hats off to him. He's working a system that I don't respect. And I don't. And I'm not going to apologize for that. And I'm not going to back away from being critical of Deion's approach, coming in and kicking all those kids off the team, coming in and turning the whole, claiming Christianity and inviting the entire rap music world and drug-using, drug-promoting world to your football program. I'm never getting on board with that. Never. And there's part of me that wants Deion and that approach to fail spectacularly. Yes, it is true. Here's where I'll give Deion credit, and I mean this sincerely. Everybody here knows that I like Warren Sapp. Love the fact that Deion Sanders gave Warren Sapp a chance to coach. I'm not sure if anybody else would have done it, particularly at the Power 5 level. And to see Warren Sapp come into his own as a coach and he's now going to have this successful career as a coach with or without Deion from this point forward. Because anybody that's watched their defensive line play, and Warren, I think, is the assistant defensive line coach, but he's going to get a lot of credit. Anybody that's watched Colorado's defensive line plays knows it's significantly better than a year ago, and Warren's going to get credit for that. I respect the fact that Deion gave Warren Sapp this opportunity. I really do, and I mean that sincerely. Deion's given some other guy, the offensive line coach, I can't call his name, but I think a somewhat unique choice. This guy certainly has a unique appearance, and he's done a solid job. Deion has given some black coaches a chance to come together and to do something significant. These guys will benefit from their experience with Deion. Hats off to him. That's the part of Deion I respect. The rest of it, I still have no respect for. They can win 10 games. They can win the national championship, and I won't respect the way they did it. No different than there are many people that don't like Urban Meyer and all the criminality that went on at the University of Florida when he was winning national championships at Florida. Looking the other way as Aaron Hernandez and all the other arrests were going on at the University of Florida. This is what goes along with big-time college football at a lot of these places. The more corrupt your program is, the more unsavory people you allow in, the more success you have. How you go about winning matters to me. Doesn't matter to everybody. Other people just look at the results and say, that guy is successful, he's won X number of games. And yes, I am aware that corruption in college football was there before Deion Sanders. It'll be there after Deion Sanders. He's not the first, just like I just referenced Urban Meyer. And Urban Meyer is someone that, just being completely honest, I have respect for. Deion, the whole rap thing, the leading with the Christianity, while none of his approach matches that, that's what bothers me. Deion wants to come in and be a secular coach and take the cross off and quit trying to pretend like he's some kind that Jesus is walking right with him as he builds this football program. It's offensive to me. No humility there from Deion. It's all about his sons. It's all about he favors his sons. He favors both of his sons and Travis Hunter. It's not a whole team spirit. It's a group of mercenaries. Deion being one of them. So Deion may win 10 games. I hope he doesn't. I'm never going to back away from that. If he does, credit to him. Thank you for giving Warren Sapp an opportunity and a second career. Love that about Deion and what he's done there, but the rest of it, I have no respect for. Steve, I've rambled a bit. Do the Deion haters, do we owe him some sort of apology? Should we be scrambling?
To a certain degree. Look, they're playing solid football. And it's interesting, they're actually getting less attention now than they were last year. I find that to be a bit bizarre. Now, I caught the last quarter and a half after coming back from the Hard Rock, and Cincinnati kind of battled them. Look, the question now with Deion and Coach Prime, if you want to call him that, how long is he going to be there? Because here's the issue. If you're Colorado, and let's say he leads you 9-10, you go to the Big Ten championship game, that's an unbelievable second year. And if all of that happens, he's in the running for Coach of the Year. He may not win it, but he has to be given credit for an unbelievable ascension, right? But what if he just leaves all of a sudden? Doesn't have a quarterback of the future. Maybe the best player in the country. Looks like he's headed for the National Football League. And so if you're Colorado, now you have to ask yourself, not to jump ahead too far, was the Coach Prime experience worth it if he leaves after just 2 years and there's a mass exodus of Louis going all across the country to other programs? But in terms of the future schedule, Jason, Texas Tech is going to be a shootout. They can't stop a leaky faucet, but they could score a lot of points. That's going to be one of the more entertaining games of the year. Utah, I hate to say it, as soon as Cam Rising could not stay healthy, that team and program has not been the same. Kansas, now that game's actually at Arrowhead, I believe, as they rebuild their stadium. That's going to be an electrifying atmosphere, and maybe that's a way for a team that's lost a lot of close games this season and had a disappointing year to salvage it. And then they play, Oklahoma State, who's been one of the more disappointing teams of the year. Jason, I could see a scenario where the Buffaloes win 3, if not 4, of their remaining games, just looking at it game by game.
Yeah, if they go 10-2 and they got a bye this week, they go 10-2, holy cow. He will be but here's my bigger point. I think Deion's headed to the NFL at 10-2 or even 9-3. I think if there's one thing that I think he's proven is that he's worthy of a shot as an NFL coach if they win 9-10 games this season. And I think the Dolphins, someone's going to, maybe even the Cowboys, the NFL is just a television show. They will invite Deion to be the star of one of their TV series, I think, next season. That's where I think this is all headed. And if he 9-3, 10-2 this year, I will not complain if he gets an NFL head coaching job.
Can we back up just a little bit? Because Joel Klatt sounds like Deion himself. Do you believe now? I don't want to hear it. We evaluated what was happening on the field, and it was a train wreck. Do you know why we have expectations that things should be happening fast now? Because they can. Look at Curt Cignetti. 8-0 from a team that was 3-9, and may go undefeated this year. We'll find out. And his famous line that will be on a statue someday, perhaps, is "Google me, I win." In the way we set it up today, particularly the way Deion did it, I'm bringing Louis, and he cut half of his roster. You should be able to win right away. So forgive us for having the expectations that you would do exactly what you said you'd do.
I didn't have the expectation that he'd do exactly what he said he would do. That would be Joel's point, that I didn't expect that.
No, of course. And our point is he didn't. So we criticized him for not being able to do what he said he'd do.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yes. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And yes, because take BYU. They were 3-9 last year. And they're 8-0 at this point. There are other people, and that, again, this is this corrupt microwave football atmosphere that we've created. And so you can turn a program around in an instant. Their argument is, which I think is illegitimate, but they weren't as bad as Colorado. Colorado had never blah, blah. And I'm like, nah, man, miss me with all of that. Colorado's got a better football history than Indiana University.
Well, not only that, he replaced the whole roster. Who cares what they were? Yeah. When you replace the entire roster, we can't talk about last year anymore because last year's doesn't exist. You brought your whole team, said you're bringing Louis, you got a whole new coaching staff. You said, we're going to have all the rappers on the sideline. It's going to be a party here. It's going to be the same as Trump's Madison Square Garden convention at every game here. And then to say we owe him an apology, where are the haters now? Joel, you sit on TV and criticize people all day long, every day. It's what you do. You're an analyst on game day. And then you come on Colin Cowherd's show and the rest of Fox, and you criticize people based on what you see. And so do we. And so this idea that anybody would have to go around giving an apology. Look, if Deion can pull off a 10-2 season, great. I hope at some point he stops putting rappers on the sideline, and I hope he starts parenting these kids, because many of these kids don't have parents. But the idea that we owe him an apology is preposterous.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, again, and to be fair, Cignetti brought on a lot of transfer portal guys himself from his old program.
Yeah.
But, but this much is true. There is a value to winning that is heightened in the Big Ten at Indiana as opposed to winning games in the Big 12. It is what it is. If Cignetti can win a game or two, and I guess Curtis Rourke may or may not come back against Michigan State, but look, my coach of the year right now would be Cignetti for one reason. That was supposed to be a bottom-level Big Ten conference football team They had no recent history of success for the most part, right? And not only are they undefeated, they're blowing teams out. And they found a way to win a game with their backup against Washington on Saturday. Saw some of that game. And anytime you can go and win a conference, if they should do so, be honest about it. What's a tougher conference? Big 10 or Big 12? I think everybody with a conscience and a shred of integrity would say it is the Big 10. It's a much better, tougher league.
Indiana finishes, I believe, at Michigan State. Then they play Michigan. Then they at Ohio State. And then they finish with a bad Purdue team.
Yep.
And so Michigan State's not very good. Michigan's not very good. Ohio State is supposed to be good. But if somehow they pulled off an upset at Ohio State, which I watched them against Washington. I've watched a lot of Indiana University football in my lifetime. I've never seen them with a physical offensive line that could be that kind of dominant. And I saw Indiana with Bill Mallory and a running back, Anthony Thompson, who made the offensive line look better than what it was. But they were just physically dominant over Washington. And that game should have been even more of a blowout. Indiana's going to be a problem for Ohio State. But even at 11-1, or even at 10-2, I may have more respect. Well, I know I'll have more respect for what they've done than what Colorado's done, just because the Big 12 is so weak. I watch Cincinnati. It's not the same. Big 10 and SEC football are on a completely different level than the Big 12. It's just not even anybody with a brain going through that grind. Nice job, Deion. Better job, Indiana. Better job, BYU. I watched them go to the bounce house. I watched them go to the bounce house. They had no problem with UCF, none whatsoever. That's a good football team that I think, Deion, if they face in the Big 12 championship game, somehow they made it. I think my money would be on BYU in that game. But, Deion and Colorado have exceeded my expectations. I'm still mad as heck that Baylor let that game slip away, because if that game had slipped away, I think we're looking at a whole different season. But
yes,
Steve, final thought before I move on to my WNBA obsession.
Well, look, BYU, it is interesting. If you're going to trumpet Deion's record, and they might win the Big 12. Okay, keep this in mind. There's a guy in his own conference by the name of Kalani Sitake who's actually undefeated. And they've beaten some decent teams. They're very physical. Jake Retzlaff, the BY Jewish quarterback, has become like a big thing up there. Now, look, they needed a little bit of a miracle ending against
They got a BY
State.
Jew at quarterback at BYU? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and I watched
Jake
the game.
Retzlaff.
Yeah,
Jake Retzlaff. He's pretty good. He had this dramatic ending on a Friday night against Oklahoma State and Provo. It looks like one of those magical special years. And another coach I have to give credit to, and there was growing animosity from his own fan base, Pat Narduzzi at Pitt. They got a transfer quarterback, Eli Holstein, who's playing really, really well. And what they did to Syracuse on Thursday night, which was thought to be a pretty close game, they just hammered them. And you look at Pitt, they are 8-0. So this whole discussion around who the coach of the year is, yes, Deion is a candidate. But as of right now, I would not necessarily say he's the leading candidate. He's the most popular one among certain media members.
We're going to have to, Hadley, go ahead and reach out to Joel Klatt, see if he can come on this week, and we'll let him gloat, and I'll give him some pushback. Steve, I'm going to let you go because I'm about to obsess about the WNBA. My girl Caitlin Clark's getting a new coach.
Good.
I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, she's getting a new coach.
Great news. Good news.
Anyway,
great news.
Steve, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. My final thoughts here not my final thoughts, because Shemeka's going to come on and tell me what's happening in the chat today, but I do want to talk about the Indiana Fever. They have fired everybody, their president, their general manager, and now their head coach, Christy Sides, gets bounced after just 2 seasons. This year, she gets Caitlin Clark, leads them to the playoffs. You know, they exit the playoffs after 2 games. It's not much of a playoff run. Fever, just a nonchalant little, hey, we've parted ways with head coach Christy Sides. This was kind of telegraphed, though, because there had been a report that came out earlier that Stephanie White, I think she was the head coach of some WNBA team, and she was leaving and had 3 candidates of destinations on her list, and the Indiana Fever were one of them. That came out last week, so no surprise it was telegraphed that the Fever were going to move on from Christy Sides. But it just seems interesting, and I don't know, because I'm someone, by the end of the year, I was good with Christy Sides. Early in the year, I was anti-Christy Sides. I wanted her gone. I thought she was in over her head. By the end of the year, I had kind of warmed up to her and was good and didn't think she needed to be fired. Clearly, the Fever have thought otherwise, and clearly something's going on in the WNBA. I think half their coaches have been fired. And so the WNBA is recognizing they're at an inflection point, and they're trying to level up, it seems like, with all of their staff, and it certainly seems to be going on with the Indiana Fever, that, hey, they got a great opportunity to level up here in terms of president, general manager, and head coach, and they're taking that opportunity. It's what the WNBA needs to do. This head coaching decision, I think, is critical. If they go after Lisa Bluter, the Iowa coach, who retired just 2-3 months ago or 4 months ago after this past season, and she went to a lot of Indiana Fever games. This is Caitlin Clark's longtime college basketball coach. Love to see the Indiana Fever hire her. Would be good if they hired this Stephanie White, because she's had some success. She's worked for the Fever before. She's a former player. I think maybe she played at Purdue or IU. At one point, she was involved with the Fever organization. I do think both of these women have better resumes than Christy Sides, and I'm just going to keep it 1,000% real why I want Lisa Bluter. Caitlin Clark, and I don't know anything about Christy Sides. I really don't, other than what I saw. I don't know anything about her personal life. But I do know Lisa Bluter is married. And I do know that the Indiana Fever, in order to max out Caitlin Clark, they need a more traditional family-type structure atmosphere in Indiana. When I look at Christy Sides getting fired and I look at the organization running out their leadership, it screams to me, Nylisa Smith, the power forward that played for them, that has this ongoing relationship with Dejanay Carrington, seems like she was a problem all year. And that Christy Sides and the organization couldn't get their arms around it, couldn't fix that problem. Caitlin Clark, if you go look at that Iowa atmosphere that brought out the best in her in college basketball, it was an atmosphere that was very supportive of heterosexual female athletes. I'm not saying it wasn't hostile towards the other side, but that was a feminine, heterosexual atmosphere they had going on in Iowa, and that's the environment Caitlin Clark needs to excel at the highest level in the WNBA as a professional. She's not homophobic. I'm not trying to be homophobic here, although I probably am homophobic. I'm not trying to be in this instance. I'm just telling you, you got to have an atmosphere that matches your best player. It's no different than what I said about Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics years ago. It's what I said about Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics even longer ago. When Red Auerbach was running the Celtics organization and they got Bill Russell, a generational, once-in-a-lifetime talent, they built that entire organization around Bill Russell, and they ran a lineup out there in the 50s and 60s, all-black starting lineup, first in NBA history. a really black roster to match Bill Russell and get him comfortable. And when they had Larry Bird, what did they do? They put a bunch of white guys that Larry Bird could drink beer around him, build an atmosphere that got the best out of him. That's what you do in basketball. That's what you do when you have a generational talent. You put them in the environment they're most comfortable with. You've heard me say, take Erica Wheeler, who I believe is alternative lifestyle. I love her. She's one of my favorite players on the Indiana Fever. She has Caitlin Clark's back. This isn't about running out all the alternative lifestyle people, but it is about establishing an organization that's in support of the lifestyle and the environment that brings out the best in Caitlin Clark. That's why I want Lisa Bluter. That's what the other candidate, I'm sure they've already probably made their decisions since they fired Christy Sides, but the other person I would love to see coach that team is Kim Mulkey. Would love to see Kim Mulkey. Again, you'd have to pay Kim Mulkey a fortune. She probably makes $3-4 million a year at LSU. I don't know if the WNBA is ready to do that, but you bring Kim Mulkey and her personality to the WNBA, to Indiana. Now you really got magical TV there. Again, Lisa Bluter would be my first choice. She's familiar with Caitlin Clark, understands Caitlin Clark's personality, how to calm her down, all of that. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Christy Sides getting fired. I'm not overjoyed with it, but if they get the right hire, I will be overjoyed. It's what they're doing potentially is recognizing, like, hey man, with this collective bargaining agreement coming up, with all the upheaval, this unrivaled league trying to bait people into playing 3-on-3 basketball, and potentially we want Caitlin Clark very comfortable in the WNBA. Let's put people around her that help bring out the best in her and create an environment. We know how hostile the WNBA can be to heterosexual players. They're not going to have that in Indiana, I hope, with this new leadership team that they're putting around Caitlin Clark. So those are my thoughts on Caitlin Clark and the potential of her next new head coach. When we come back, Shemeka Michelle will tell me what you guys were saying in the chat. All right, Shemeka, what's popping in the chats? How did I do today?
As always, Jason, you did fabulous. You're the best at this. No one can compare or compete. Never worry, never wonder, never question it. You are at the top. No comparison.
We're off to a much better start this week than last week. At least you're not scolding me. That very, very good start. Go ahead, Shemeka, continue.
Yeah, it's because I'm hungry and I need my job. So, this is Bidenomics. I want to make sure I'm staying in place. We're going to start out today, Jason, with 2 super chats, a couple comments, and then I'm going to ask you about something that I learned in the chat about you that I don't think I knew. So that's how we'll end, but I'm going to start with the super chats. Joseph Morrison says, surprised you and Skip were never on a show together during your time at FS1. Is that because Skip plays the racial politics like everyone else except you?
No, it's because Skip and I are not a match content style wise. I didn't Skip the whole. I was anti-debate, and I'm pro-conversation, and So Skip was like a debate, and he took debate very seriously and actually feels like he won debates about silly stuff. I was never that guy. I like to have conversations and exchange of ideas, not trying to beat up on it, but Skip's ideas tended to bore me. They're too simplistic. And so it just I wasn't a fit for what he did, and he's not a fit for what I like to do. And so I found Skip to be a very nice person overall in terms of, people found him to be relatively pleasant. I don't think he's handled the other side of this fallout with Shannon Sharp. He's done a lot of finger pointing, a lot of, that I haven't respected. But as it relates to authenticity, I just think me and Skip are on two opposite ends of the scale, and I'll just leave it at that.
Sean Robinson says, I watched 10 seconds of Club Shay Shay, and I was like, no way. Keep up the great work you guys do on Fearless. Thanks. Thank you, Sean Robinson, for the super chat.
Yeah, thank you for the super chat. I disagree, though. I like Shannon Sharp much more on Club Shay Shay than his previous work. I actually think he does a relatively good job on Club Shay Shay. I think that Club They is more his element. We'll just leave it at that.
Underground Raw says, why always use blacks to make a point? Try someone else. It's annoying.
Why always use? If he doesn't clarify that, I don't know. I don't know if I can accurately answer because I'm not sure what he's talking about. Why always use black people to make a point? I can't answer that. Send that back in again tomorrow if you can. Clarify that question, and I'd love to answer it. Next.
SMP of Lexington has given us all new names, Jason. Butter goes in the butter box. I go in the Mrs. Butterworth's box, and you go in the Nutter Butter box.
I love Nutter Butters.
They're good.
Holy cow, are they good. I love peanut butter, and Nutter Butters used to be one of my big problems. Probably right after a payday, that might be number 2 on my snack list, my old snack list. Anyway,
we don't get along with snacks. Nutter Butters are okay, but payday, you said that one last time, and I was thinking that is so disgusting. But speaking
who
of
doesn't like paydays?
No.
Hold up. Who doesn't like paydays?
Scale 1 to 10, it's a 3.5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Holy cow. What's at the top of the... We're almost Halloween. What's at the top?
Butterfinger would be near the top, yeah.
All right. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
I would say Hershey's with almonds. Never mind.
Not bad. That's kind of like a...
Almond Joy's good.
That's a... Almond Joy's
I love coconut.
Horrendous. Oh, that would be at the bottom. If I get one of those with my Halloween trick-or-treat, I'd immediately go, you want this, kid? Or someone that immediately...
I didn't like it as a kid. You grow up or you become an adult and you start trying candy again, which I've boycotted now. I'm on a month of candy sober.
Yeah, I'm Payday, Snickers, and Reese's Cups.
Kit Kat?
No. Anyway, next.
Okay, so Not Your Average Negro says butter needs the butter box right now. He is wrong. The reporter was doing his damn job. And it was at this time that people went in, said he needs a butter casket. I can't believe it's not butter. They started to call him parquet. They all went in.
Awesome.
Butter.
That's good to hear. Butter's losing his popularity. I should have put butter. People should be mad at me for not putting butter in the butter box for that comment. That was a mistake on my part. Mm-hmm. Next.
Lastly, Jason. So I found out, I knew you were a celebrated journalist, but I had no idea you were like a rapper, kind of, sort of. So Taco the Great says, ask Jason if he remembers being on Tech Nine's album. And then Dre Day Solo said, also, if you could ask Jason, since he's friends with Tech, and Cut Calhoun, if he knows anything about their fallout. Strange music ain't the same without both of them.
Cut Calhoun was one of Tech's proteges, understudies, and now has moved more into the Christian rap lane. Just put out an album called TDIAL, The Devil Is a Lie. It's pretty good. I listened to it this weekend. There's a couple of songs that I need to follow up with Cut on, and maybe we'll incorporate them into our show. I don't know the details of why Cut left Strange Music. You know, it's like most things, it's over money, generally speaking, if I was speculating. But, you know, you know what? I'll do these guys a favor. I'll try to get Cut to come on the show here, and we can ask him directly, see if he wants to talk about it. But yes, I was on Tech's KOD album, The King of Darkness. I did not rap on it. I was a reporter. It was a skit. You know how rap albums all had these 1-2 minute skits in them? And it was a skit where I was asking Tech questions or I was asking Chris Calico questions about Tech. We were having a conversation. And so I was kind of the bad guy, asking tough questions of Tech 9. But yeah, I was on the King of Darkness. I spent a lot of time running around with those guys, writing stories about them. Been to a lot of Tech 9 shows back in the day. We'll try to get Cut Calhoun on. Shemeka, great job as always. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, actually, and for those of you that are Fearless Mission subscribers, you'll see some extra Fearless. Shemeka and I are going to talk today about the young white woman that confronted a baby at a Harris Walls rally. Thank you. That's it, and that's all for us today. But become a Fearless Mission subscriber. You can see this extra Fearless content. That's tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I wanna